Mark Howe is the Cultural Resources Specialist and Historian for the United States Section International Boundary and Water Commission in El Paso, Texas. The United States Section International Boundary and Water Commission spans the entire U.S.-Mexico border from San Diego, California to El Paso, Texas, and south to the Gulf of Mexico. Mark received his master's degree from the University of Texas at El Paso in history. He currently serves as a commissioner on the El Paso County Historical Commission and archaeology chair with leadership roles in the Southern Trails chapter of the Oregon-California Trails Association and the board of directors for El Camino Real de Tierra Adentro.
Yes.
All right. And on that, I'll turn it over to you, Mark.
Thanks, Drew. Well, usually when I give these speeches, I always ask people if they've ever heard of the International Boundary and Water Commission, because a lot of people have not, because we're a small commission that's been around for many years. And I'm just trying to get this thing to slides. There we go. And I'll have a lot of overview slides on what this is. And a big thing I want to say is, I always give the little disclaimer. The speech is my opinion, not that of the U.S. State Department, who we fall under, or the U.S. IBWC, and they're strictly those of mine. So I got the legalese out of the way. So as you can see on this map here, we have everything on the left side of the screen from San Diego, where we have treatment plants all the way down in San Diego and in Nogales, Arizona, and then up here at El Paso, from Cabajo Dam up north in New Mexico all the way to the Gulf of Mexico, where we have two reservoirs, Amistad and Falcon, which we administer the dams there. We're a binational commission under treaty with Mexico. And so we work directly with them, our counterparts, SELA, right across the river. And what I'm going to be talking about is giving you a background on Smeltertown. And the first thing to talk about is the monuments, because the monuments that span, going back one, basically from, I don't know if you can see the cursor on the screen, but from El Paso, the land monuments all the way to San Diego ending in 258, but there's 276 of them. So the monuments, originally when they were put in the 1850s, were the Emery monuments. They were just rock stacks. They were put in with Mexico. And then in the 1850s, with the Gadsden Purchase, they changed the boundary to the Gadsden Purchase line that you see today. And then in the 1890s, they changed them again to what you see as the Barlow Blanco surveys in the 1890s. So the 1890s Barlow Blanco survey, during that time frame, the monuments look like this. So they used to have a gate around them and they were stone. Now they've been plastered over. And like El Paso, you can see on this picture, this is what it looked like at that time back in this is the 1930s. Excuse me. And then Nogales, Arizona, you have them on the hillside on both sides and down there in the river. Monument 258 in San Diego, if you go out there now, it looks completely different. It's completely grown up. The fence is gone. There's a border fence to the south, and this is what it looked like back in the 1890s. Very pristine, very open at that time frame. So if you come out to El Paso and you look at some of this stuff, you're going to see down here, and Drew, I've taken him down here to show him a lot of this because it's quite interesting, is we're looking across the river from American Dam. And what you see over here is a replica of the Casa de Adobe Museum, where the Mexican Revolution was at. Monument 2 is on the hill and Monument 1 is down below. Now they put these in line of sight. The importance of Monument 1 is this is right there in the Smeltertown area, even though it's across the river in New Mexico. So looking at that area, here's what it looked like back in 1911 during the time frame of the Mexican Revolution. As you see here in this picture, remember this. The railroad bridge is in the background, and you see that stack back here, that smokestack, that's the cement plant, the old cement plant that's still in existence there. Even though it's not used, it's still there. It's over 100 years old. The bridge is gone because rectification came down to about the bridges. I'm sorry, canalization came down to the bridges, and then rectification started from American Dam south. This is this New Deal project from the 1930s. There's the monument. The one thing that's still standing besides the bridges is the monument that you see here. And then right over here is where they were having Pancho Villa, Madero, and the rest of them were meeting. And in the 1930s, under the Roosevelt administration, the New Deal projects, what we did is we had money under the National Industrial Recovery Act to build canalization and rectification down the river. And one of the results was American Dam here, which actually put water into the American side for the irrigators over there. So if you look at these pictures, you'll see this. And then here's another picture from the west side of the river, and that's Monument 1. This time frame, they tore down all the buildings and everything and then put levees in. And so you can see also, again, Smeltertown across the river, and then remnants where people lived on the left side of the picture. Here it is from 1973, before they made the reconstruction of the museum. As you can see, it's all pretty level ground. So you can see the foundation for Monument 1. You see everything is level. And then today, if you notice, you have fill all over that area. So basically everything is now, the monument's here and everything above it is all fill. So the remnants of all the stuff that was there after it was obliterated is still there. This is buried. So that's why a lot of times when I'm out there, I'm talking to people saying, hey, Border Patrol, you might hit the remnants of something out here, like an outhouse or something. So be aware that Smeltertown and the remnants of this area, this nexus point of history of New Mexico, Texas, and Mexico is an important point to be looking at. So a lot of history out here. And of course, you can see the cement plant right back there still standing. So here's just a picture of what the monument looks like today. People come out here all the time from both sides, walk around to take pictures, and the little line you see between the monument on both sides, that's basically the U.S.-Mexico border right there. The center of the monument is where the border is. The south side is Mexico, the north side is the U.S. And you're in New Mexico at this point. So when you cross over American Dam, somewhere around here, Texas and New Mexico. And so when I bring tours out there, I show people this so they say, look, hey, I'm in New Mexico, you're in Texas. It's kind of an interesting little thing. Here's another picture of the monument. And of course, Monument 2 is just out of sight on our right side up on the hill there. But this is just a few years ago. Some people put this, talking about the problems over in Juarez, they put this little monument there. And so this is what it was looking like just a few years ago, before the border wall. As you can see, the railroad bridges, Monument 1's over here. And so this is what it looks like now with the border wall that's going up that area. And the gate, of course, connects over to American Dam. And then here's the brick plant on the US side, and this is a brick plant on the Mexican side. That is still working. They still make bricks over there in Mexico, and of course, the Rio Grande. So, Smeltertown. Here's a picture from 1939. Basically, as you read this, Smeltertown was the American Smelting and Refining Company for ASARCO, which is off on the left side. Smeltertown is where the people, a lot of people from Mexico, Mexican descent, lived over here and just went up the hill and worked over at the smelter because it was a convenient place to work, and it was far enough from El Paso. As you look at the background here, there's no houses and there's nothing out here, no development. At that time, there wasn't. And this is from the 1930s, probably not to the 50s or later, did you see a lot of development of Juarez moving north. And so with a lot of this, people living there, things happen. So under the New Deal projects, we came in and we started doing construction for our American Dam yard. As you read, in the 1970s, Smeltertown was obliterated because of high concentrations of lead in the blood of the children there from lead poisoning. So they said, hey, we got to do something. So they obliterated everything, knocked it all down, but it's still there. All they did was put fill over it and it's buried. And one professor that I correspond with, David Carrasco out of Harvard, his father and his family, his grandfather actually, he said, built or designed the school that was down in Smeltertown years ago. And there's a plaque we have that talks about that historical plaque. And in the future, hopefully we'll have some more plaques, the Texas historical plaques, in front of our American Dam office so people can actually come down there because they're right down in the river floodplain and it's not actually a good place. But so going back to this, they removed everything, removed all the people. This picture you see was as they were building American Dam. At that time frame, the sewer systems just dumped right into the river. And that's what this was doing. In the 60s and 70s, we changed all that with the Clean Water Act. So what's interesting out here is we got these air photos all up and down the river that were taken, and now we use satellite or drones or other stuff. But in the 1920s, they were taking air photos before World War II started with the Air Corps. And if you look at this picture in the background, you can see they're over a big field over in El Paso here, and it's looking west over towards the Franklins. So these pilots were using this biplane to take pictures. And here's some of the pictures they have of El Paso and that area. If you look on the left, if you come out here, you'll notice everything down over here. This photo, the river used to come down through here. And here's Juarez, here's El Paso. Looking over here, you notice there's nothing over here. This is all completely developed now. So 100 years later, it's full of people. So these were just boxes we had found in our stacks, our archives. Opened them up, went through them, started cleaning them up, magnifying. And this area right here, this is Old Fort Bliss. This is from Old Fort Bliss was there to about 93, 73, 93, around that time frame. I'm probably off on that. But they were out there. They moved because the railroad came right through their yard and they needed a larger area. So they moved to the east side of the Franklins. But the remnants of it are still there, the officers' quarters and the hacienda. So you're looking over here, Globe Mills is gone and all this. And then here's looking at the hacienda. And then, of course, you got the Sequía Madre, which goes down, water delivers to Mexico. That's been there for hundreds of years, even before American Dam. So this is before, or this is around the time frame American Dam was being put in, and then also just before American Canal was put in. As you see, here's the two officers' buildings for Fort Bliss. Here's Globe Mills. I-10 goes right here now, and most of it is all gone. Just these buildings here and the hacienda down here, which is pre Fort Bliss and also pre El Paso. So a lot of history in this area where the river comes down. So this is what the photos look like. They're about 2 feet by 1. And then here's what it looks like for the Smeltertown area. You can see how open it was in that area. No executive drive, which actually comes down here. This is all completely developed now, and UTEP is just down to the south. You can see this picture here of a Sarco. Now, one thing I'm going to point out also is there's a building right down over here. You'll see that later on that it's a pump house that we just notice is there. You drive by it every day, you just never notice. Monument 1's down over here. As you can see, they marked on the pictures which way the river was flowing. Here's Smeltertown in a Sarco. Another picture going up. These were just, we never even knew they had anything because they were starting at the border going south. And they had these pictures going up river, which we found very interesting. Here's another picture of that area, a close-up. Satellite picture from 1989. As you can see, it slowly developing up in that area. And now we have International Dam, which is down over there. That basically is like American Dam, but this is the water that goes down to the Sequía Madre, which goes to the Mexican irrigators under treaty. So that area down there, Globe Mills, that's Old Fort Bliss down there, as you can see up in on the right-hand corner, the ore bench for Asarco, and this bridge right here along American Canal, which was from the 1930s. Now, here's a picture, as you can see again, of Smeltertown from 39. I'll use this picture quite a bit. Monument 1 is down over here. Smeltertown, there's the school. And up over here is the church that's no longer there, the Catholic Church. Sometimes, every once in a while, I'll put pictures on Facebook on the Smeltertown, Texas group. And several people have commented that they grew up here. And one lady said, this house over here, I believe, she's like, that's my family house. Can I get a picture? She grew up there back in the 70s, and she was just excited about this. Here's American Dam, American Canal, and we just redid this. That's why we found all these artifacts and stuff just in this area. As you can see, American Canal actually cut through here, but Smeltertown used to come all the way out here to the river until they put that in. Some of the older pictures I have will show that. So why did we do that? Well, as you know, the Great Depression basically put a lot of people out of work. So under the National Industrial Recovery Act, we were given money so we could do all these different projects. Now, remember, we handled the whole U.S.-Mexican border. So we had them all the way from San Diego to here, down the river, down the lower Rio Grande Valley of Texas, where you see pictures down there of our levees. But I'm just concentrating on the Smeltertown area up over here. Now, under some of this stuff, based on the 1906 Equitable Distribution of Waters Treaty, this is why we had this for the water that went to the irrigators on the U.S. side. So these laws and these acts provided money for us to do this work. And also another point was to separate Rio Grande waters allocated to each country in the El Paso Juarez Valley equitably. So everybody got a fair share. As you see, this looks like a sea monster if you look at this part, but it's actually a kid diving off into the Rio Grande. I wouldn't today. So, but you see a lot of people always down here on the Mexican side, swimming and fishing and all kinds of stuff out there. U.S. side, you'll see people fishing, but not, and then kayaking and stuff. But when the water flows down the river during irrigation season, you have a lot of that water that's coming down. So it is actually very clean. Here's a picture. Several years ago, the stacks, the big stack, as you won't see in the picture because that one that said a Sarco on it, that was later. But as you can see on here, the original two stacks they had out there. And then this little scar here, it's been obliterated now, but our office, as it was being put in right in this area. Drew, you can see my mouse moving on here, right? Okay, so there's the bridge. And so our offices were going in right over in this area. And then going down, as you can see, how much of it came down right to the river's edge. So the people were living right up to the river's edge so they could go work at a Sarco. Here's another picture looking north. You can see the two smokestacks. This is the old Fort Bliss officers' barracks. Here's the privies right here behind here. Several years ago, Paso Water went through and put a 48-inch water pipeline through there, which we had archaeology, a lot of stuff came up in that area. In the future, we're going to be redoing a lot of work on the American Canal in this area and hopefully be out there to monitor that to see what comes up also from that time frame of old Fort Bliss. So as you can see on these pictures, they're putting in American Dam. Here's a picture of the American Canal going down through this area. You can see all the construction. And this is the cover channel of the canal, old Smeltertown, all that in the background. And so now going back to see what we found. Now, this was put in 36, 38, 60 some, 70, almost 80 years later, it needed to be repaired. So we fixed this area so far right now, just the point from here going down to around here. This is Paisano nowadays, but that road is still there. And a lot of this is a double lane on both sides. And then you have just the road that actually was in the front of Smeltertown. So pointing this out again, in the area we were working on, that they found remnants of it, of these buildings and the artifacts coming up, were basically here where we started doing our work at. So what they did is our property for IBWC, before we put our yard in over here, as you can see, this is still housing. Right along this edge here, this fence, that's all government property. The U.S. for IBWC is off on the right. At that time, we were International Boundary Commission until 1944 under the Water Treaty, when we became the International Boundary and Water Commission at that time. But here's a gauging station for water going down the canal. And so here's where they were doing the work. And so as you can see on this, the fence is right there. And you notice the fill. You have the fill on top here, and then you have the remnants of the buildings, pipes, and other stuff that's here. So we hit this floor, looking at this in the profile view, you can see the fill and sewer pipe coming out because you can really smell it. Also, before they put the sewers in there, probably in the 50s, around that time frame, what you had were outhouses. As you saw in some of those pictures, and the pictures coming up, look close down by the river, you'll see rows of outhouses all going down the river. And as we know as archaeologists, sometimes the most interesting things you find is in an outhouse. Hopefully not a recent one, but a really old one. And I'm sure Drew's done his work digging some of them up also. So looking at this, here's some of the stuff we were just finding just in this little area right here. A pencil, plastics, and then we had a step here, a 2-inch iron gas line, or it could have been a water line, probably was gas, going through this area, and then more brick. And a lot of the brick actually came from this smelter. So we found marbles, the pencil, spoon, wallpaper, roofing shingles, ash, animal bone, all kinds of stuff you threw in, but it was fun. So as you see here, we collected some of this. And here's some of the artifacts we're finding. Now, remember that whole area down that stretch, we had to clear it all away, and all these areas were going through there. And so we were finding bottles and some features and other stuff coming up. And you remember, this is a binational community. A lot of people from Mexico, a lot from the U.S., mostly from Mexico. So you had a lot of the bottles and stuff that were in Spanish. So it's the Sal de Uvas Pico, an acid bottle. And then, of course, you had a lot of stuff that was here in El Paso. So one of them was the Lone Star Bottling Works here in El Paso that existed from 1918 to 1934. And a lot of this came from Bill Lockhart's book, which you can find the Society for Historical Archaeology webpage. A Coca-Cola bottle, picante sauce bottle, excuse me. And we found 10 of these Union Bottling Works soft drink bottles. So they're from 1929 to 1935 for the company operations. Here's some more of the other bottles. And what's interesting is you look on here, it's a Union Bottling Works. You turn it over and it actually has the address, 409 South Virginia Street here in El Paso. So where was that at? Well, here's El Paso. This is downtown, heading up towards the county city building is up over here. And the border highway is just down to the south here. So you're coming down through, as you can see, Paisano, or Donovan, I think. I'm blanking on my name right there. But you come on off here, and you get down by the railroad tracks, but here's where the bottling works, and here's First Baptist Church, or Second Baptist Church. So what you have, Second Baptist Church is here. At that time, it was segregated. And then you had what was here was a Masonic Hall and the bottling works. And the bottling works, I said, was up here. And then you have the store here, but it was torn down just last year. So this whole area is now a big parking lot for the Second Baptist Church. And they said there was a fire in there, and me and several people went in there and looked. Drew, I think you were with us. Yes, we saw it in there, so it's gone. And me and another commissioner, Mark Calamia from the Chamazal, we were out here. We looked at this to see what was there because we wanted to put a historical marker there because of the history of this place, and other bottling works here in El Paso have a long history. So other bottles we found out here is Henry Pfaff. Soft drink here in El Paso. As you can see, it's emblazed El Paso, Texas on here. Vicks, a Vicks bottle, several other condiment and medicine bottles. This Castoria bottle from the 1920s. Toltec, which is a Woodland Bottling Company, was also here in El Paso. A cup, several other. And down there in Smeltertown, we found this brick. But you got to think what happened was when they would replace a lot of the bricks at Asarco, and you're living in Smeltertown, they're going to just throw this away. So why not take it? So people would take a lot of the stuff from Smeltertown and bring it down and use it for their houses and what they had for whatever they needed at Smeltertown. So marbles, lots of marbles we were finding. And this Chesterbro, New York Vaseline bottle, I was trying to clean this out, and then I realized, oh, it still has Vaseline in it from the 1950s. So that stuff lasts forever. So be aware. And then a mailbox. Found a mailbox there, more bottles, glass with the chicken wire in it. This Pepsi bottle, as you can read, in Mexico, made in Mexico. More bottles, glass. This is the stuff we collected that was tangible and diagnostic. Teacup, ink bottle, or condiment. And then we collected some of the structures from the floor of that building that was there. As you can see, it appears to be they had, this might have been where that chicken wire was on this. The brick, the pretty good sized chunks we have here. A horseshoe or a mule shoe, railroad spike. And then household items we found in the building. So we had bone, tar, fabric, roofing material, the pencil. My secretary actually looked up this pencil because you can still see the writing on it. She said it's one of the earliest pencils from the manufacturer of this pencil at that time frame. So it could go back to the 1920s. The spoon. And then also this appears to be remnants of either a card catalog showcase book or a newspaper and advertisement. It was found around the area of the Privy, so I really didn't want to look too much to see what was there with it. But you can still read the print as you see on here. And then just, that was in 2017. And then in 2019, we had some more stuff going on down there. And this is the newer material they found. So another spoon, this green insulator, the dish. And the interesting thing is, as you can read on here, it's a Homer Laughlin dish. And you can actually get the date based on when this was made at that time frame, early 1900s, 1917. And this was interesting because as a historical archaeologist, you're always looking for the diagnostic material that will give you a date frame. When I worked in Colorado one year, I'm showing my boss, I'm like, oh, these people lived here about 1928. And she goes, oh, you can date that from just looking around here? I said, no. And I moved my foot. I said, it's a license plate here on the ground that I'm looking at. It says 1928. And she's just like about ready to hit me. It's like, yeah, you can see this stuff because when you find this, it gives you a good idea of what it is based on the dates. And as you can see here, it's all stamped. It's there. The glass insulator, could probably date that, a little white plastic button. And then these bottles, which give us another diagnostic marker. And one of them was the Economical Drug Company, which was in existence from 1915 to 1930. So go back, here's where the Union Bottling Works was at. Here is the ballpark is right here. San Jacinto Plaza in the downtown nexus of El Paso. And then you're going down into Segundo Barrio down over here, Chihuahuitas down over here, and Union Plaza up over here. So that here at 305 South Stanton Street is where the Economical Drug Company was at. So as you're looking at this, and I talked to Bill Lockhart, who's a retired professor from Alamogordo. Bill he's written a lot of books, and he gave me a lot of information on here that I put on these slides to talk about what this is. And it gives you a very detailed analysis and history of a lot of the businesses that are no longer there, but we can still see on the artifacts that are still in existence. As you can see, it's still, the original location is still there. Now, look at the Sanborn fire map from 1908. Here's the location would be on South Stanton Street. As you can see, they actually had a casino theater. So we had gambling here in El Paso. And then there was a feed yard and tenement houses. Chinese laundry. And this is what the bottle looked like. Economical Drug Company, El Rubio Manager, El Paso, Texas. So here's some other bottles then. That's the nice thing is they have that bottle marked so you can actually identify everything about it. Some more bottles, and this was a Dr. Bell's Pine Tar Honey for colds and coughs. Still had the cork in it, the remnant of it. And then here's what I found on the internet about it, where it's based out of Paducah, Kentucky, and they were advertised in every state in the Union as well as Mexico. So people were probably buying this in Mexico or there in the US and using this pine tar honey, used as a medicinal. Also another medicine bottle, as you can see, Blackstone Manufacturing Company, Newark, New Jersey. Here's some information on it, of the bottle itself. And then, of course, another one was the Victory Bottling Works here in El Paso. So a lot of the information, as I said, I got from Bill Lockhart. Go to the Society for Historical Archaeology. He has a complete in-depth analysis of a lot of the work he's done here. I thank him very much for all the information he has. And then new things I found, I've submitted to him. So he's going to be updating his stuff of new bottles that he's never even seen before. So Victory Bottling Works, 1923 to 1931. A lot of different things here on the bottling works. It talks about on this slide who the people were, the owners, and the time frame. Now, remember, as you're reading this, some of the thing about the owners, like Quevedo and Marquez, at this time frame, and Alejandro Marquez, of when they were the owners of this. And I'll just remember that because I'll go in that in just a minute. But so where was the Victory Bottling Works? So the 1908 map, as you can see, El Paso, how the roads are split here, and Interstate 10 actually comes down right through here now. Here's where it was at. Now, what you see in the Rio Grande at this time, this is all pre-Chamizal Accord, the Chamizal from the 1960s, because after that, the river was then moved, the border was now moved north, and the river was, with rectification and the Chamizal, it was cemented in. So what you have coming down here, the river now goes like through this area. So it's completely been changed from this time frame. So that was located at 316 East 9th Street. And so there's 316 East 9th. As you can see on the Sanborn maps, you get nice details of a lot of this. And it was a building here, says tenements adobe in different places there. And then from the 1928-29 air photos, here's where the location was. Now over here is a power plant that was no longer there. If you come down to El Paso, here, this building up here, that's the laundry works. That's where people stood up there during the Mexican Revolution and watched the Battle of Juarez go on. Here's the tenement buildings that are still in existence over in the Chihuahuita neighborhood. American Canal, as you can see, there was a canal that actually came down through here, but American Canal came down through here and then crossed over down along the border when it was moved, and the bridges too. So you can see how all this was looking at that time frame. So what's there now? Well, it's gone. The whole area has been completely redone with the bridges and the new border highway coming down through Paisano down through here. And here's rectification in the Chamizal, where you can see it's all cemented in. That's where the border is now. So the building was located up over here in that block. So here's some more pictures of the Victory Bottling Works. As you can see, they're all embossed, El Paso, Texas. And remember when I was talking about the people, MQ. Now, Bill told me he'd never seen this one before, and that he believes it's not unusual for a silent partner to be anonymous in actual operations, but those people, they had their initials on the bottom of the bottle of that time frame, actually gives you a nice date when you can tell when that bottle was made, probably in existence. Also, the phone number that's embossed on here, phone M2590 at that time, using an operator back in the 1900s, early 1900s. And then a weird one was we had a Dai Nippon Beer Company bottle from, I believe, just out there in the Smeltertown area. We found this. It's Japanese, and looking at this from corresponding with Douglas Ross, the author on this, from his paper on it, that he had some. As you can see, ours is a little bit different. It's not raised as you have on the one. This one is more etched in. That's what we're seeing. And quite interesting to find this, and unusual in Smeltertown, an area where you have predominantly Spanish and English speaking people, to find a Japanese beer bottle. So it might have come off a train or anything else, no idea. And then another one we found just recently last year was this milk bottle. And as you can see on here, the MTC mark on the bottle talks about when it was used. 1 quart liquid is Escobar Dairy here in El Paso, with the information that's on that. And then you see also a plant code. So a lot of times if people were having their milk dropped off at their places where they lived, they would, send them out, and then they would pick them up. And as I was talking to Bill, he said a lot of times they would have a letter on the bottom. So when they put them in the racks, they could see whose bottle went to what dairy. And like this one for Escobar went to them. You might have a G for Gonzalez went to that dairy, or so forth. And that way everybody got their proper bottles back, and so they could refill them for milk. So as you can see here on this one, embossed with the dates and codes. This information where you can find a lot of this will be posted later, I know, as I was talking to Drew about. So you can look at all these different sources of where the information I got for this paper was from. And so Escobar Dairy, as you can see in the top right, the bottles at that time, now of course everything we see today is plastic or other disposable methods. And then here's some information that was from the Escobar Dairy, still in operation, or 1990 plus at that time frame. And then another thing I threw in here is just last year there was at El Paso in the Centennial Museum, actually they had a display on Smeltertown and the smelter. And so they took a lot of those artifacts that I'm showing and they actually put them on display to show people this. And then they had people come in and speak about this of Smeltertown in the Sarco area. You notice the one thing is the Vicks bottle here in the mailbox. And of course we found a little soldier and some of the plates and stuff they had in bottles from that time frame. So 1910s Mexican Revolution time. Remember that bridge that was showing you that was taken out in the 1930s? Here it is during the Mexican Revolution time frame for the people who lived over on the west side of the river. They could cross the bridge, buy goods and stuff over at Smeltertown or in El Paso, and then cross over to the area that they were living at over on the west side of the Rio Grande. So you can see at this time, looking downstream again, how the river moved around this area as they were putting in American Canal. They moved everyone off Smeltertown. There's the church. Here's some remnants of the Smeltertown on the west side. Notice the adobe structures here. This is looking north, all these adobe structures. Of course, this, the nice thing is in these photos I'm showing you is the dates and the information is there so you can actually see. I-10 comes along there. Of course, as you can see, this is all completely been obliterated on the west side of the mountains down here. More adobe structures. And as I was saying about the outhouses, see them all lined up here? Now remember this little building right here. That's the pump house. And I'll talk about that at the end. But as the river, and then here is the brick plant bridge, that's no longer in existence. They replaced that. And then the railroad bridges. And there's the smokestack. So you come out here to El Paso, you can actually get a glimpse of this. And if you go down to the History Museum in downtown El Paso, they actually have a history wall where you can type stuff in on that wall, and it'll bring up all these pictures. And a lot of these pictures you see here are on that wall. So people can see a lot of the history of El Paso along the river. Here's another picture looking in that area. And this is the southern part of Smeltertown, about where I'm thinking that it began going north. So when I put my work in here, my site dimensions, I included this. You see, Smeltertown was a very large location, large area along the river. And as you can also see on this, this is pre-1936, before they started American Canal. Another picture of that area. You didn't have the flooding like you used to have to ever since Elephant Butte Dam was put in upriver in New Mexico. So the huge flooding we used to have along the river ceased, unless you have a localized storm event. This is the bridge going across, and this is when they're starting the work on American Canal and American Dam. And there's that scar. Our offices, the location of it was right over here today. Of course, this is all gone up here and everything else. Starting the work, there's the school over on the west side. As you can see, there's nothing over here on the Juarez side. Now there's lots of development over there in Juarez. Nice views of the smelter up here, adobe buildings, starting to do the work out here for American Canal and Dam. See all the kids in these pictures? Notice all the outhouses. Lots of stuff for information out here, along with the old buildings, adobe, and then just everything, the water going into the river. More work in building the canal. You can see 1930s, they were still using horses. The museum or the old buildings that were over here during the Revolution are all gone. There's your railroad bridge. This, I think, is a wrong date because there's trees here, and some of the other photos before don't show that. The school, Smeltertown, no development all through here. It was way out there. And then, of course, they had a YMCA. Excuse me. So they had a YMCA in Smeltertown, and you can see where it was located at. So they put in this culvert to go down the river. A lot of the outhouses, the buildings, Monument 1's up over here. And then here's a street that's still there. And then, of course, you have the railroad tracks are gone, and your Main Street Paisano through there. And interesting thing is, my boss, Gilbert Anaya, his uncle grew up in Smeltertown, his family. A lot of people out here in El Paso, their families have a tie in with the Smeltertown area in one way or another. And so he told me his great uncle, who won the Texas Lightweight Crown, actually was there in the YMCA at Smeltertown. His great uncle. That's his father, and that's his great uncle. So this area in here, this was a gymnasium at Smeltertown. And the lady that I was talking about, she said this was her house she grew up in, right here. And what I'm trying to do also, besides the archaeology, is to tell people, if you know information and stuff on this, contact UTEP Oral History. Tell your story before it's gone, so people know the history of what's going on in this area. Because it's important. As you can see, my boss is the history. He has a huge tie of the history of Smeltertown. And his grandmother kept these newspaper articles about that, and then how he actually won years later after the war, 1947. And then also talking about, as I said, the trees going back to the Smeltertown area, what you can see here. During the construction of American Dam and the smelter, Catholic Church up here, the school. As you can see, after, this is in Mexico, after they tore down the buildings there, they actually put a little monument up there. And this is the river floodplain. Mexico put a monument up here, which would be interesting to find if there was anything left like the plaque that you can see on this or anything else. Looking across the river and where everybody would go up to work at the smelter. A lot of water coming down the river after this time frame in 1937. Again, notice all of the line of privies all down the river here. That's why a lot of this is, as historical archaeologists, the amount of information we can have on something that's still there, that's just been buried, will be interesting to see and hopefully to work at. Back to the picture of that area again. After they put the dam in and American Canal working on the levees with the horse teams, more construction, downriver, part of Smeltertown area looking up. As you can see, adobe structured brick buildings up over here, people drying their laundry outside. That bridge to go into the Sarco, which is still in existence. And when we do this work, I'll be doing consultation again on this, when we have to replace this part of American Canal. As you notice here, by 1938, that bridge is gone. Here's the old brick plant bridge that's been replaced. The railroad bridges are still in existence. Opposite side of the river, as you can see over there, there used to be a lot of industry over there now. It's all gone. Monument 1 over here. Buildings where people were living at across from Smeltertown. The Smeltertown area. This is a nice picture of enhance this a little bit so you can see. The area we were digging at was down over here. There's the church, the school, and all the different houses of people living here. So today, what do we see today? Well, we know Smeltertown is gone. And what I've just recently done was, from the artifacts and the structures and stuff we found along that area, it's time for it to have a site number. So it's now 41 EP 7316. And then also recently we were out there because the Smeltertown sign that was down by the river was knocked down. That's now at El Paso County. So in the future, we'll put that in front of our American Dam facilities there, so people can actually drive off there safely and look at all the different signs for the history of that area. And when we were out there to look at this stuff, we were walking down by the river, and for that pump house. In Sarco, when they leveled everything, they left the administration building. They asked them to leave that as maybe use it for a historical museum or something in the future. And when we were walking down around here, you drive down Paisan all the time, you never notice it. You know, it's like the monuments out there, people see them, but they don't know what it is, or they don't have a note. It's one of those eureka moments. And so you see this pump house building, we walk down there, and it's right up over here. And we walked down to it. I was looking for some pictures. I didn't have anything, but you could look inside through the cracks of it, and you could see the electrical works and the foundations where they had pumps. And then we walked back behind. And what we found was the old, huge wheel structures and the irrigation equipment to raise the gates to let the water in from the river that they pumped over to Sarco for water for the railroad engines, for whatever they needed it. But that's where they drew their water from. And that's probably the only other example of what we found of what's still surviving of one of Sarco down by the river in Smeltertown. So we were really fortunate when we found that. So here's the dimensions of what I put in for Smeltertown for existence today. I didn't go across the river, even though part of it was over here, because most people can think it's just in this area through here of where it existed. And as you can see, American Canal right here, and American Dam right across here, and then the railroad bridges here, and there's the cement plant, and Executive is right here. So I hope you enjoyed this little history of what we found out about Smeltertown. It's not complete. It's not done. There's still more stuff coming up that's out there. So what is still there is you saw, it's just buried. And I hope in the future that as we continue to work on our stuff along American Canal in that area, that as we find more of our artifacts, maybe structures, that I'll be able to give an update in the future of more of this information for everyone out there to know that the very tip out here, out by El Paso, New Mexico and Texas, is still dynamic. And if you're interested in this, I had an article in Kiva, Journal of History of the Southwest, on Smeltertown and the border monuments, if you're interested. So thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you, Mark. And I think you really gave us a very interesting glimpse into the history along the Rio Grande in El Paso. Well, if any of our viewers have questions for Mark, feel free to leave them in the comment section below. And on that, I want to thank you again, Mark, for your presentation. And that concludes the presentation on Smeltertown.
Thank you very much.
Thanks.